Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. We're going to talk about the latest ruling that came down the pipe from the Federal Appeals Court by a 7-4 margin. They have set aside all the tariffs that the Trump administration has given. To understand the nuances, to understand where it is going to go next, we have a small slide deck. And before I go into this slide deck, a small request to all of you to please like this video, and if you've not already subscribed to our channel, do subscribe to our channel. Let's take a quick look at this court ruling. Remember, viewers, I'm going to take you back to a few months because this has been something that has been raging ever since the Trump administration took office. Let's go to the next slide, please. So what happened was the United States Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. So what happens is a lower court rules one way, you can appeal it, it goes to the appeals court. Now the appeals court has ruled in a certain way, which is, I think, siding with the lower court. Now the Trump administration has some options. Let's take a quick look at what really happened. See, sometimes what happens is you pass a law or you pass an order based on a certain provision available in the Constitution. Sometimes that provision may not cover you, and you may have succeeded if you had used a different provision in the Constitution to pass the order. Is that what happened here? Let's take a quick look. So the court held that imposing tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act is not applicable. So essentially what the court is saying is that today the United States is not, in its opinion, that United States is not under an emergency, and therefore the court, the administration should not have imposed these tariffs because it is quoting the IEEPA, International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Now you may ask me a question: are there other things, other provisions in the US Constitution that perhaps the Trump administration could have used? Yeah, there are some options. I'm going to take a look at all these things. So what has happened now? This is August, right? In May, the Court of International Trade in New York said the same thing, and now the appeals court above that has agreed with the International Court, Court of International Trade in New York. Next slide, please. So what means is that while the tariffs has been ruled illegal, they have not actually stopped. There's no stay order on the collection of tariffs. The Trump administration has up until October, which is close to 8 weeks, to make up its mind as to what it wants to do, to accept this thing or go to the next upper level, which is the Supreme Court of the United States, under which they can again appeal this. Is that what they're going to do? We don't know. But in the meantime, the tariffs stay. That means that the Trump administration has time to appeal, and also it has time to collect all these taxes, and it will also generate revenue for them to go and support all the ongoing trade negotiations. Next one, please. So the whole story started not in May but in April. April 2nd was called as Liberation Day, and on that day tariffs were put with saying that there will be reciprocal tariffs up to 50% of the countries with which it runs trade deficits, like India, and a 10% baseline tariff on most other trading partners. For example, Singapore 10%, United Kingdom 10%. The tariffs were suspended for 90 days to allow time for the countries to negotiate with the United States, and that time has run out. 90 days is 3 months, right? May, June, July, that is done. In fact, they got an additional 30 days, especially countries like India, and on 27th August, it actually took effect. Now, countries like Laos and Algeria faced higher levels even on April timeline itself. Let's go to the next slide. So this was one aspect of trade tariffs because of trade deficits. There is another tariff percentage that was enforced, and that was enforced on 3 countries mainly: China, Canada, and Mexico. And this had to do with how they were allowing fentanyl to come into the United States. And this move was completely aimed at pressuring these countries to curb the flow of fentanyl. And these were 25% each, if I remember correctly, on all three countries. It could have been 30%. I don't know. And as of today, I don't know what the status is. Suddenly, it's as if the Trump administration has forgotten about this fentanyl crisis. It still is there. There are some other things that are happening. For example, Mexico is not happy that US troops are moving into Mexico to try and curb this thing, to try and arrest the cartels. Something is going on there. But as far as the tariff based on fentanyl movement, that part is still not updated. I don't have the latest data. Let's take a quick look at. So the other thing aimed at Mexico was not just tariffs, not just fentanyl, but also the illegal immigrant traffic that was coming in. As a matter of fact, you will be surprised to know, viewers, that illegal migrant numbers were high from the southern border, but the type of illegal immigrant coming in from Canada was far more dangerous. It is believed that many criminals came in from there. So both these countries were getting it for not also doing a good job on fentanyl enforcement as well as illegal. Then on top of all this, for steel, aluminum, autos and auto parts, there was an additional 25% tariff that was levied. I mean, once you start looking at this becomes a story that very hard to keep up. So this was imposed under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. It's a separate statute. So the steel, aluminum tariffs, those will not be ruled under this particular decision that the appeals court has done, because the appeals court is very specific. Whatever the Trump administration levied under IEEPA, those are the ones that it has struck down. Next one, please. Yeah, it is a little complicated because at the end of the day, each country has to figure out how much is it that it's going to have to pay as tariffs. Then, why did the court rule against the Trump tariffs? The thing was that the court held that for a sweeping tariff levying on all the countries, it is not the administration, but rather it should be the Congress that should be having the power to impose taxes, and that IEEPA does not override this core congressional power. Remember a few things, viewers. The Congress is the one that appropriates money for various initiatives. The Congress is the one that allows the president or sanctions the president to go to war with other countries. Same way, the Congress is the one that has to decide whether levies, a tariff should be levied across the border on many countries. So this is what the court is ruling. Remember, viewers, again, this is an appeals court that is saying that. It doesn't mean that SCOTUS will agree in the same way. Now, the court also ruled that IEEPA rule allows the president to regulate imports during a national emergency. Regulate imports during a national emergency, but does not authorize tariffs, duties, or taxes. And this is according to IEEPA. But there is another act called the Trade Act of 1974, which explicitly grants such powers with limits. Could the verdict from the appeals court have been different if Trump administration had used the Trade Act of 1974? Well, that's again something that the Trump administration may be keeping in its back pocket. Should the SCOTUS also side with the appeals court and say you cannot levy these tariffs, then Trump may come back in a different way. Let's wait and see how that goes. Next one, please. So the court also feels, this is where the opinion part comes in. It feels that it's unlikely that Congress intended IEEPA to grant unlimited authority. That means it comes down to interpretation. Is the United States in an emergency today? If people say yes, then what is that emergency? Are people being curbed? Are there capital controls? Are there restrictions on movement of people? What is the emergency that the United States has? So these are all the questions that the court is asking. So I'm sure the Trump administration is going to have a very robust defense when this thing goes to the next level, which I expect it to do. So when you cannot justify an emergency, then the court questioned whether the long-standing trade deficits qualify as unusual and extraordinary threat. So that needs to be invoked under IEEPA. So basically, that is what the point is. It's a matter of interpretation. Is there an emergency? If so, what is that emergency? That is a question. So for fentanyl tariffs, which is a separate category, the court ruled they did not directly address the drug trafficking emergency, instead aiming to create economic pressure which exceeds IEEPA scope. So the fentanyl part also has been struck down by the appeals court, according to my understanding. And viewers, I'm not a lawyer, but that's what it appears to be. Again, these all will be challenged in the Supreme Court of United States, I think. Let's go to the next line. So what are the bases? See, there has been precedents of this kind. There have been things that have happened in the past, which is what the court has ruled. It said that there is a principle that actions with significant economic and political impact, such as the sweeping tariffs of Trump, require explicit Congress authorization. So if you want to make that statement, then you have to have a basis for that, which means there should have been a ruling in the past that would support it. What was that? The Trump administration had cited US versus Yoshida. This is in favor of putting tariffs. 1975, which upheld Nixon's tariff under the TWEA. But the court noted that IEEPA 1977, this has come after that, and the Trade Act of 1974 were enacted to limit such executive power. So basically, the court's ruling is saying that the president doesn't have the kind of powers to do what he did. 4 dissenting judges, that means there were 4 who said it was okay and who ruled for Trump, led by Richard Taranto, argued that IEEPA's text and history, including Yoshida, permit tariffs in emergencies, calling the majority's view too narrow. So there is a realization that perhaps the United States is in a state of emergency, especially at least in the eyes of the 4 judges who dissented with the majority opinion. Next one, please. So what is going to happen? Well, first of all, we have to look at the impact on US economy and treasury. What is going to happen is, till July, the Trump administration claims it has collected up to $159 billion as tariffs, and that is more than double from the year before. The Justice Department warned that removing tariffs could require refunds, risking financial ruin for the Treasury. I mean, if your ruling comes and says, no, you have to return back the $159 billion, that could put a big hole in the Treasury. Economists fear long-term effects, higher consumer prices, market uncertainty, and slowed economic growth. Again, I'm back in the United States now. I can tell you that prices have indeed gone up a little bit, but not a lot. But this pinch will start becoming obvious in 2 to 3 months' time, because the channel is already stuffed, you see. And the channel was stuffed from the pre-tariff days. Until the channel completely takes out that and puts in the new material, you will not notice it. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But I have a feeling that this is going to happen in the next few weeks. What are the next steps? Appeal and alternatives. Trump vowed to take it to the Supreme Court of the United States, calling the ruling, if allowed to stand, this decision would literally destroy the United States of America. Now, there are other legal alternatives available, like, for example, using the Trade Act of 1974, which permits tariffs of up to 15%, not the numbers like 15, not 50, for 150 days, but with limited scope, and the Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, which allows tariffs on national security grounds, but requires a Commerce Department investigation, which means it would have to be done on a case-by-case basis and a country-by-country basis. Next. So, right now, there could be another thing that's going on. What happens if the SCOTUS also, strikes down the tariffs? It is believed that the Trump administration is preparing a plan B, using these statutes to keep tariffs in place if the Supreme Court blocks IEEPA use. That's where things stand. If I have any questions, I'd like to take them now. So the broad, okay, I'm sorry, there's one more slide. Broader implication: the ruling weakens the president's ability to use emergency powers for trade. I mean, this is like he's trying to aim for the moon, and he's thinking that even if I get to a tall building, that is fine. The decision strengthens Congress's role in tariff setting and restores a balance of power. The Republicans are still a majority in Congress, and they could still rule for Trump. And this whole thing could again still be very much in effect. And that is something that the Trump administration could also be doing. They can call the Congress and say, okay, go and rule on this. This could alter US trade negotiations, as foreign government may resist Trump's leverage or seek to renegotiate deals. So a lot of stuff still possible. We'll have to wait and see. The SCO meet is right now what everybody is looking at as to what the three big countries, Russia, India, and China, decide. So it's an interesting time to be in. We'll give you the update because this is not the last word on this matter. We'll come back to give you updates. Let's take a few questions now, please. Question: why Mr. Trump bypassed the procedure and jurisdiction? He wanted to get things done in a hurry. See, this is something that is pretty common. In the first term, the deep state got in and they completely blocked Trump from doing anything meaningful. So this time he's trying a different tack, giving them a lot of stuff so they don't have time to adjust or counter those things. Next one, please. Neelakanta Naresh wants to know, how will the commodities and stock market start reacting if all countries do not budge? Your view, 𝗠𝗍. What is going to happen is the stock market still feels that the economy in the United States is doing well. The stock market will react once the Fed decides to cut rates. Then it will start falling. That's my take. Next one. Because that is an admission by the Fed that there is indeed a recession. Next one is Ruben wants to know, more and more Indians are asking why the Indian diaspora and US are generally keeping quiet over this tariff issue, especially the CEOs of various tech companies who all were hero worshipped here. What do you think they can do? Honestly, these are the laws of the land. You have elected a president, and the president sees that this is the path for US to become great again. I mean, you have 3 more years to, before you change your mind. Of course, you could vote out the Republicans and give the Democrats a majority in 2026, but that's no guarantee that they are going to do a better job of it. So this is a complex issue. So I think people are just waiting to wait for the courts to rule on such things. Because once the courts rule, then the law gets settled, and then people will start saying, okay, this is not practical, this is practical. Next one, please. Milburn wants to know, who created the International Court of Appeals? Who elected them? That's a good question. It has been around for a long time. We'll have to go back and take a look at it. Next one. Next question is, what about Lindsey Graham's threat to put 100% tariff on India using Congress action? I mean, these are all threats by a senator. You have to, these don't mean much. Next one. Would Trump dismiss SC judges? No, the SC judges are appointed for life, till they die. So if a Supreme Court judge wants to step down, they'll just do it because of health reasons or something like that. Next one. How is the mood of the Indians in USA? Well, it is subdued. Things are getting hammered from various directions. Students are not getting good treatment. H1B also is under attack. It's a difficult time. That's all I can say. Next one. Milburn wants to know, any legal body created by unelected person should be questioned by us. Why are these bodies created by whom, and how is it a safety guard for the common man or government? It's a good question, Milburn. Yes, some more research needs to be done on this. Next one, please. Thank you, 𝗏𝗏 𝗏, for your super sticker. And that brings us to a close of today's session. I wanted to keep it short because you can reflect on all the different things that are possible. This is not the last word. Still more things are happening. More things are going to happen. Twists and turns will take place. I'll keep you posted. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notification and get your SENGOL with enclosure now. If you already have one, you can go to I'm trying to show the QR code. It's not focusing properly today. Sorry about that. There's a QR code here. You can also scan that. Otherwise, it's available. Go to SREEIYER.com, SreeIyer.com, without the way the name looks, without the space in the middle, and you can get the order your Senghol from there also. Thanks once again. Namaskar.